It's Christmas in the Valley, and I've been asked by the association that I started for young women to recall some of the early days of our church. I'd love to tell you about them. They were wonderful times, although they were hard times. So be still, my sisters, and listen. I was born the second of 7 children in Massachusetts. As children, we were strictly disciplined to habits of temperance, honesty, and industry, and our parents extended us the best education facilities attainable at that time, without preference to either sex. In my early childhood, my parents moved to Mantua, Ohio, bordering on Lake Erie. My father was a farmer, but he also devoted much of his time to public business, and he was in need of a secretary to assist him. He asked me to help him, and I found it was a natural fit for my temperament. I loved learning, and even in my early school years, I was inclined toward poetical works. I often bothered my teachers by writing my homework in rhyme. I was early taught to respect the Bible. When studying these narratives, my mind many times was filled with reflections of the deepest type, and my heart yearned for the gifts and manifestations of which those ancient apostles testified. Sometimes I wished I had lived when Jesus Christ was on the earth, that I might have witnessed the power of God manifested through the gospel, or that I could see and listen to a true prophet of God, through whom he communicated his will to the children of men. But alas, that day and those blessings had forever gone by. So said the clergy of my own time. In the autumn of 1820, I heard of Joseph Smith as a prophet, to whom the Lord was speaking from the heavens, and that a sacred record containing the history of the origin of the Aborigines of America was unearthed. Was it true, I wondered, that God had raised up a prophet in my day, and was about to restore the gospel with all its gifts and power? Then in January of 1931, the prophet Joseph visited our family in Mantua. I was fascinated with the prophet and his beliefs, but still cautious. At my father's home that evening, the most impressive testimonies I had ever heard were given by 2 of the witnesses of the Book of Mormon. To hear men testify that they had seen an angel, that they had listened to his voice bearing testimony of the work that was ushering in a new dispensation, thrilled my utmost soul. However, it was still several years before I was ready to commit to the gospel. Early in the spring of 1835, when I was 31, my eldest sister and my mother, who had already been baptized by the prophet, returned home from a visit to Kirtland and reported of the faith and humility of those who had received the gospel as taught by Joseph. The Spirit bore witness to me of the truth. I felt that I had waited already a little too long to see whether the work was going to flash in the pan and go out. But my heart was now fixed, and I was baptized on the 5th of April, 1835. From that day to this, I have not doubted the truth of the work. That evening, after baptism in a stream of water, I retired to bed, reflecting on the wonderful events transpiring around me. I felt an indescribable, tangible sensation commencing at my head and enveloping my person and passing off at my feet, producing inexpressible happiness. Immediately following, I saw a beautiful candle with an unusually long, bright blaze directly over my feet. The interpretation was given me of the vision of the candle and flame over my feet. The light of intelligence shall be lighted over your path. I was satisfied. In the autumn of 1835, I bade farewell to my home and to the friends of my youth. I was determined to unite forever with the saints. After I arrived in Kirtland, I boarded with the family of the prophet Joseph Smith and was asked to start a school which I ran for several years. Soon after my arrival, I sent for the building committee of the Kirtland Temple, and on my asking them if they would like a little money, they replied that they had a payment to make soon and did not know where the means was coming from. I do not recollect how much I gave them. However, it was sufficient to cover the present liability of the committee, who felt greatly relieved and proposed to send me their note of hand for the amount. I told them that I did not want a note, they were welcome to the money. However, they sent a note, and some time after they wished me to accept a house and lot, thus redeeming their note. I was present later at the dedication of the Kirtland Temple. In that temple, after its dedication, I witnessed many manifestations of the power of God. Sunday, August 14, 1842. Yesterday, Mrs. Emma Smith sent for me, having previously given me the offer of a home in her house. My former expectations were frustrated, but the Lord has opened the path to my feet, and I feel disposed to acknowledge His hand in all things. This sudden, unexpected change in my location, I trust, is for good. It seemed to come in answer to my petitions to God to direct me in the path of duty according to His will. Sunday, 24th September, 1842. Surely we know not what a day may bring forth. The little season of quietude with which we have been blessed for a few days has gone by, and our city is again infested with some 18 or 20 men who are lying in wait for the blood of the innocent. Sunday, October 9th. Last night President Smith left home in consequence of intelligence the King and Pitney were on their way in search of him. It was a sorrowful time. Sister Emma had been sick 11 days, still confined to her bed. Wednesday, October 12th. Having heard of the safe arrival of President Smith at the place of his destination, I wrote as follows and sent to him. President Smith, Sir, for your consultation permit me to tell that your Emma is better, she soon will be well. Mrs. Durfee stands by her, night and day like a friend, and is prompt every call, every wish to attend. Then pray for your Emma, but indulge not a fear, for the God of our forefathers smiles on us here. It is hard to be exiled, but be of good cheer, thou art destined to triumph. Then like a chased deer, hide yourself in the ravine, secure from the blast, a while, till the storm of their fury is past. For your foes are pursuing and hunting you still, may the God of our forefather screen you from ill. As I resided in the family of Joseph Smith and taught his family school, I had ample opportunity to mark his daily walk and conversation as a prophet of God, and the more I became acquainted with him, the more I appreciated him as such. His lips ever flowed with instruction and kindness, and although very forgiving and indulgent and affectionate in his temperament, when his godlike intuition suggested that the welfare of his brethren or the interests of the kingdom of God demanded it, no fear of censure could prevent his severe and cutting rebuke. One of the spiritual highlights for me in Kirtland was when my young brother Lorenzo came into the church. As a young man, Lorenzo had an insatiable urge to learn. He was always hit up with his book, but although he was trained from infancy in religion, Lorenzo had devoted little or no personal attention or study to the subject of religion. I knew he wanted to study Hebrew. I wrote him he could have a home with my sister if he would spend the college vacation with us. He came, and to improve the time, he engaged in the study of Hebrew with Newell K. Whitney, the prophet, and others, under an efficient Hebrew teacher who had opened a school for the benefit of the saints in Kirtland. And while studying a dead language, he also studied the eternal principles of a living faith. His mind drank in, and his heart became imbued with the living faith of the everlasting gospel, and not many weeks passed after his arrival before he was baptized. It was also during the time at Kirtland that my father joined the church, and soon my whole family was united at Kirtland. Before long, we headed to Adamon-Diamond, and not long after that on to Illinois. To narrate what transpired within the 7 years we built and occupied Nauvoo the Beautiful would fill many volumes. That is a history that never will and never can repeat itself. Some of the most important events of my life transpired within that brief term, in which I was married and in which my husband, Joseph Smith, the prophet of God, sealed his testimony with his blood. In Nauvoo, I taught school again and wrote more poetry. I penned Appeal to Americans, my thoughts on persecution. There's a dark foul stain on the eagle's crest, for Columbia's sons have her sons oppressed, and chased into exile now they roam, far away from their land and their much-loved home. Awake, all ye sons of freedom, awake, and redeem your cause for Columbia's sake. Give us back our rights, ere eternal shame shall wither the wreath of our country's fame. I love the scriptures and continue to read them daily. I express my feelings for God and of man's close relationship with him in my poem, O My Father. I wrote this poem in Nauvoo. The concept, I've a mother there, was given to me by revelation. I was interested in a woman's part in the restored gospel and the emphasis on marriage and motherhood. I asked the prophet for more information. His answers inspired the poem. O my Father, thou that dwellest in the high and glorious place, when shall I regain thy presence and again behold thy face? I was one of the first groups of the saints to leave Nauvoo. I was 42 years old. This was my third exodus from a home for the gospel's sake. In the final days of Nauvoo, I expressed these thoughts. Let us go. Let us go. Let us go to the ends of the earth. Let us go far away from the land of our birth. For the banner of freedom no longer will wave, or the patriot's tomb, or the dust of the grave. Let us go to the far western shore, where the bloodthirsty Christians will hunt us no more, where the waves of the ocean will echo the sound, and the shout of salvation be heard the world round. The hardships and exposures to which we had been subjected, combined with the unhealthiness of the climate of our winter quarters, caused much sickness, and sickness increased destitution. But in the midst of all, we enjoyed much of the Spirit of God and many seasons of refreshing from His presence. My life, as well as the lives of many others, was preserved by the power of God through faith and not on natural principles as comprehended by man. Previous to starting for an indefinite point, probably 1,000 miles into the interior, and from all suppliers, the idea of an outfit or equipment was an important consideration. I was to start immediately, and what about my outfit? Its extent must be determined by the amount of my means. On examining my purse, I found it contained 1 dime. I was nearly minus ink. I could not go without that article. 1 dime was just the price of a bottle, and I made the purchase. On the trek west, we had many seasons of rejoicing in the midst of privation and suffering, many manifestations of the loving kindness of God. In very many instances, the sick were healed, and those who by accidents were nigh unto death made speedily whole. February 19th. Snowstorm commenced in the night and continued through the day. It was so disagreeable out that I did not leave the buggy. Suffered considerably from a severe cold. Amused myself by writing the following, entitled The Camp of Israel. Although in woods and tents we dwell, shout, shout, O camp of Israel. No Christian mobs on earth can bind our thoughts or steal our peace of mind. The camp, its numbers swell. Shout, shout, O camp of Israel. The King, the Lord of hosts is near. His armies guard our front and rear. Sunday, March 22nd. After passing the timberland, which was very rugged, came to a bottom of 3 miles, on which I counted upward of 80 wagons before me at one view. Tuesday, the 19th. From exertion and too much exercise, Sister M is quite sick and unable to sit up. I drive, of course, the boys assisting over bad places. All are very delicate, and I am so nearly tired out by exercising myself to assist the sick that I can do little but sit in the wagon and drive. Once we reached Utah, it took 10 years to recover my health. But I did recover my health, and I continued to be called upon to use my abilities as a leader and as an organizer. I labored ceaselessly for the building up of the kingdom of God, especially as a teacher and counselor to the women of the church. President Young asked me to lead the Relief Society, and I utilized my experience from working with Emma in Nauvoo. During my term, we also established the Young Women's Association and the Primary Association. I traveled all throughout Utah helping the women of the church. But the sweetest title to me was the one the saints gave me, Zion's Poetess. I have written for many others at their death. Now it is time for my epitaph. Bury me quietly when I die. When my spirit ascends to the world above, to unite with the choirs in celestial love, let the finger of silence control the bell, to restrain the chime of a funeral knell. Let no mourning strain, not a sound be heard, by which a sad pulse of the heart is stirred. No note of sorrow to prompt a sigh. Bury me quietly when I die. Like a beacon that rises o'er the ocean's wave, there's a light, there's a life beyond the grave. The future is bright and it beckons me on, where the noble and pure and the brave have gone, who have battled for truth with their mind and might, with their garments clean and their armor bright. They are dwelling with God in a world on high. Bury me quietly when I die.